Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us all today. If you just want to say hi in the chat and just say where you're joining us from today, that'd be fantastic. Then we know who we've got on the call so far. Great. So hopefully if you can just navigate the chat bar, you can just say hi in there, and that's where we'll also be using that to ask questions as well. So if you want to put anything in the chat, do. Give you something to do while we just wait for the people to join us. There is also a Q&A panel. So we've got Jen Wood joining us today as well. She's on the call. So she'll be keeping an eye on chat and also the question and answer panel. So if you've got any questions that come up, we will look to pause towards the end, and we can answer any questions that you've got, or if anything's very pertinent, we might flag it up earlier. So please do use those areas to kind of feed back to us, because we'd love to hear from you and make sure it's as relevant as possible to what you've got today. Hi everyone. Hi Salma. Hi Diana. Thank you so much for joining. Hi Deirdre. Hi Mary. Great to have you all here. So we'll get cracking. It's prompt on time. Keep everybody happy that's here already. So welcome to the Empower Women Leadership webinar series. So our aim is really to inspire, inform and ignite action within workplaces to make sure they have the setup and support to support women in the workplace. The reason we set up these webinars was very much based on our feedback of working with training mums and placing them in the workplace, but also speaking to companies who are hiring mums and hiring women, obviously, within their organisations. And we got very much the message back that we want to be supportive of women, but we don't necessarily know what we need to do. And we'd love to kind of learn about that. And when we look at the work that Salesforce does, we kind of they very much talk about supporting equality and all their different social responsibility elements that they work on. And there's so much to be learned from companies who are doing this really well already, and to see the benefits from that and to kind of disseminate that knowledge within the wider Salesforce ecosystem. So that's really what I wanted to do with these webinars, is to kind of focus a lens on different areas of supporting women and sort of bring together those best practice experts and insight to kind of help us work on improving those areas for Salesforce customers, Salesforce partners, and then we can all work towards having a better environment that's going to support more women into tech and make sure that they all feel supported throughout. So today I'm delighted to have a fantastic panel, including Antoinette Dale, who's founder of the Gravitas program and also has a book called PowerUp. So she'll be sharing some of her insight about how to give women power in the workplace and also their life more generally. And Helen Kaliski, who's the Senior Vice President of Cloud Sales for Salesforce in the UK and Ireland. So they'll be introducing themselves formally when they come to their part of the presentation. But really today, I'm very thankful to have them on the webinar to share their insight about the workplaces they've worked previously and how they've been able to support women to have a powerful voice. So to start with, I'm going to talk about why is this important? Why do we need to give women a voice, and in what context that might be? So I just want to kind of think about it from different angles. And my question to you, if you want to think about this as I talk through, is if you want to put in the chat, it'd be great to find out about, when you signed up for this webinar, what was it that triggered your motivation to sign up? What were you interested in learning? Because if you can share that with us, then, myself and the other guest panelists can take that away and make sure that we address it as much as reasonably possible. So when I was thinking about putting this presentation together around why do women need a voice, I was kind of looking at it from different angles. And I'm actually going to start with number 5 on this list, because what I've learned through my research and being to various presentations about supporting women into tech and about making sure that we're tackling all the areas that come with this topic, is that it seems to be really important to make sure that we've got female leadership at the top and that they represent the views and help be a sponsor for all of the other aspects of supporting women in the workplace. And when when you look at sort of what is best practice, it's having that 50-50 split at an executive board level, for example, and making sure that you've got 50% women and 50% male at the top leadership level, rather than just the tokenistic, maybe one person on the board, which if you see a recent statistic here that showed, around the world and in the UK, only 14 companies of the FTSE 350 still have no women or just one woman on the board. It's kind of, we want to move towards a place where it's 50-50 on boards. And we spoke about Accenture's piece of work last time, and that's certainly their mission, to make sure they have 50-50 representation at all levels of their workforce. So that's kind of the first place to start. But when you have that sponsorship at the exec level, what you want to see then throughout the organization, and want to be sort of working towards, is firstly looking at, well, how do we listen to equality issues in the workplace? What are the problems that women are experiencing, and having a voice around that, giving every woman a voice, whether it's through a survey or interviews or a focus group discussion about, is this workplace working for you? What issues are you experiencing? That's the first place that you can give women a voice. And then somebody has to take that information and represent those women, and that's where we go on to giving a woman in that workplace a voice who can be the influential person and lead on what people are asking for, and help move that through to changing policies or practices, or introducing new ways of working that are going to answer those problems that people are facing. So they're the first two areas that I wanted to really reflect on about giving women a voice. Number 3 and 4 is about women and their career progression, and equality of pay in the workplace. So women will start, and then again, the majority of women will work in lower rungs of an organization as the higher, and that's part of people's perhaps perception. I say perception, it might be reality in some places, but also the interviews that I've done with people at some of the corporate companies has been, actually, it's been a perception. And what made a difference to them was hearing and speaking to women in senior level roles, where they got to understand, well, what was the expectation of them at that level? How do they get supported about having a balance between a family life and a work life? And actually, it was a perception that she thought she couldn't reach those upper levels, but actually having those role models and people sponsoring, realized actually it is possible to progress up the career ladder, and to still balance it all and achieve what they want. So I think there's two key aspects of giving people a voice here. One is, let's recognize talent and give them a voice to shout about how fantastic they are, through making them experts in certain areas, and that will help with tackling pay gap. It's certainly not the only thing that will influence pay gap, but in the context of this presentation, I think we need to raise the profile of female experts and give them that platform. And the second is, women who are in senior levels, we want to enable them to be champions and role models for other people lower down, and to actually say that you don't need to give up everything, like your life and your family, in order to kind of be at a more senior level, because that doesn't make sense. You want to be able to have it all. And I think that was the biggest turning point and reality check that I've seen, having interviewed lots of people now around these topics, that made a difference to them, that allowed them to walk into these senior level roles. So they're the 5 areas around giving people a voice that came to my mind. But it'd be just great to have a look at the chat now. So I'm just going to link back, and I'll just click onto this next slide. What was it for you that brought you to this event? It'd be fantastic just to hear your thoughts. So, Salma, you're interested in cultural variations. Fantastic. Anybody else? Great. We can keep reading those if anybody else would like to add to those in a moment. So let's keep working through. So putting together a strategy around, what are the things that we need to think about? And you're going to get different perspectives today. So this is kind of what I'm sort of, in my mind and my process, and around sort of tackling some of these areas, and then we'll move on to Antoinette and Helen. But from my perspective around, well, how do we give people a voice? I think the first thing for me is about listening to people's passions and ambitions, because women will have a voice about something that they are passionate about. And that might be about equality in the workplace, or it might be about their professional discipline and getting more women to that sector, or showcasing the work that they do. So you want to be able to empower women around something that they are passionate about. As I say, that might be more internal led or external to their career. Once you've listened to what they're passionate about, it's really about upskilling them and giving them that platform and a medium that works for them. So for many, some women will have a preference around whether they engage more on social media, or whether they speak at events, or whether they're more speaking at internal events, or maybe they've got a particular passion for writing and they want to do more blogs or podcasts. How do we give women a voice, and make that accessible? It might be through questionnaires or interviews, for example, as well, if it's more about gathering people's views. So how do we skill up women to have a voice? And then how do we help them understand their value that they're creating? Because I think one of the things, when I've spoken at, I've been very privileged to have the platform at Salesforce events, and for, to be given that opportunity to speak about something I'm passionate about and to spread that message. But what I found equally rewarding, and feel like I have value, is the women that come up to me afterwards and say, thank you so much, that was really inspiring, or that made a difference. And so how do we help women measure and recognize their contribution, which gives them the confidence and impetus to keep going, really, and to keep saying more, because then they feel like they're doing that. So it might be about how you can support yourself or a woman you're working with to measure their own feedback, or to try and elicit that feedback in some way. Or it might be about putting in more formal feedback process. If you've got a female speaking at your events, make sure that you're giving them feedback as well, because that can really add value to them. And in terms of feedback, it's more about the general, more tangible feedback or qualitative comments that people might have. But if that woman is speaking on behalf of a company to help raise awareness around careers at a company, can you give them figures around attraction and attribution as a result of that? Did it attract a load more women to come and apply for a job opportunity? And has that resulted in actual employment, which is a really good feedback process? And they can really see that actually their presentation to a load of potential candidates has made a difference, and they are coming through. And how would you reward somebody for doing that? And it reward can be as simple as a box of chocolates, or something that is more tangible in that it might add to their career profile. How do you reward and measure and recognize people's contribution? And overall, we talk about, I think women need to be paid their worth, and valued in the organisation. I put financial, but it might be in kind financial, it might be actual tangible value. What we want to do is make sure that women are being paid an equal wage for what they're delivering, and also are given the career progression that they deserve, and that is recognised as well. And research has proven that if you support and engage women in the workplace, and you have an equal balance of men and females, that your business will perform better. So overall, by putting in place this momentum, everybody is going to benefit through the process. And then turning the lens on some other aspects here, you've kind of got the aspects around, well, where do we need the voices? So I just wanted to recap on this, really, just to kind of, again, sort of help you go away with a bit of an action plan. But the first area is, there needs to be that voice at an executive sponsorship level. And the executive sponsor is responsible for speaking to the other senior directors and saying, okay, these are things that we need to focus on right now because of X, Y, Z and the benefits it's going to bring us. And to do that, we need to put financial and people resources behind it. We need to make sure we have a team that can deliver. We need to make sure that people have time to contribute to this, and there needs to be a communication plan about why it's important to the organisation and why people should get involved. So that's often the role of an exec sponsor. And then they might be supporting an influential sort of component to this. So we spoke and had a great session last time about the women's network, and if you have a women's network at work, what can it get involved in and what does it do? So you might set up a women's network, you might undertake those interviews or surveys with women to gather their views and feel like you're listening to them, and then that hopefully will influence policy. And then there's the aspect about management support, which is actually what people can do every day. And again, through the various interviews I've been doing with women in the workplace, it's very much around these different components. And again, all the different aspects of giving people a voice, really. It's about putting in place mentoring relationships, coaching, and coaching can be quite different to mentoring. You might get somebody that can do both, but coaching is about helping support people to progress, and challenging them on their limiting beliefs, for example, and moving them forward. Management can also give a perspective of recognition and reward, so making sure there's a clear performance framework and people can work towards it and can see the next steps ahead of them. And it was about helping women raise their profile, as we've talked about. So what is it they're passionate about, and how can you start to make them famous, if you like, for what they're good at, either in, you know, and their reputation is known both internally and maybe externally, depending on their role. And what are the voices of inspiration that you can bring to that person that you're managing? You know, who is it that they need to talk to about perhaps the next job role they can go into? So they're all the different aspects about supporting women in the workplace there. And then the final bit I've got here is the company voice, and this is about, you know, when it was the National and International Women's Day, it was fantastic to see some of the Salesforce partners getting women in their workplace to do interviews and to write blogs about what their day in the life of a workplace is. And that's fantastic, because we want to get more female voices out there talking about their roles, talking about what they do, and to help use that around influencing their recruitment processes, you know, utilizing that in social media and PR to show actually, you know, these women are flourishing within their job roles, and that's, you know, shows a company that's, you know, appreciating women and representing it. But I think underneath that, you have to have the internal policies. You have to have internal policies that aren't just there and tokenistic, but are measured against and shown, like in the gender pay gap surveys that are done. You know, actually you can report on that and feel like you're improving your situation for women year on year and making it tangible. So I'm going to get to the point where we'll hand over now to our panelists. And I just wanted to sort of end my part really on this quote that I pulled out from Antoinette's book. You know, what do we need to empower women? And I think it is about making a difference. Like, we can all go away and sort of put some of these things into place, but if we want to feel like we are making a difference, then we need to measure the impact. And so the quote is, power on its own is merely a force, but what relevant is the impact it creates, either for that person or for the organisation. Truly powerful people are the ones who are clear about the outcome they'd like to achieve and then consciously plan their approach to achieve that outcome. So we want to empower women to achieve their passion, their mission, and to be supportive of that in whatever way. So I'm going to hand over to Antoinette now so she can carry on that conversation. So let me just get I'm going to stop my share. Antoinette, over to you.
Hi everyone, as Heather said, I'm Antoinette Dale Henderson. It's brilliant to be here, and I'm very excited to be sharing the outcome of my work into what power is. And it's brilliant to hear the context behind all of this, Heather, and all the research that you've conducted around corporate organisations and where we're at when it comes to empowering women. Just a brief bit of an introduction for me. I've been running my business now for the last 13 years, and before that I spent 16 years working in the corporate world. I worked my way up to the top when it comes to in PR. I worked in a range of different PR agencies, and so I know what it's like clawing my way up the career ladder, and I know what it's like juggling children. I've got 2 daughters now, they're teenagers, and it was part of the reason why I decided to move on was the juggle, you know, that the hassle of spending a lot of time in traveling on planes, sitting in finance meetings, and not really feeling like I was truly making a difference. And what I loved doing when it came to making a difference is building people up and empowering them to be themselves. And so so where does PowerUp come from? I run a program in corporate organisations, and it's called the Gravitas program, and it's all about leadership, communication, impact and influence. And it was about a couple of years ago when the gender pay gap reporting started to happen, and also the Me Too movement kicked off, and they started to really unveil all those inequalities and inappropriate behaviour in the workplace. And I thought, I need to do something about this. And I was working with a lot of women who were saying, you know, on the Gravitas program, I wish I'd had access to this information earlier. You know, that would have made a huge difference to my potential and my ability to progress up the ladder. And so I decided to write the book, PowerUp. And I thought, well, I need to get this book out there quickly. And so I wrote it in a year and published it in January at an event. And so what I'm going to do today in this presentation is I'm going to give you some information about what's in the book, why power, and take you through the methodology which I've designed to help women to power up. And so let's start with power up. And so if you think about that word power, it's quite loaded, isn't it? And a lot of people I've found in my research is that a lot of people equate the word power with very masculine energy, but also that you've either got power or you haven't got power. So quite a black and white view of what power is. And so what I decided to do was to set out to demonstrate that actually there's all different types of power out there. It's multicolored when it comes to power. You could be accessing your power in very, very different ways. And rather than polarizing, saying this is masculine power and this is feminine power, I think that in the workplace, we've got a lot to learn from one another when it comes to powering up. And so I decided to spend some time looking into that word and defining, really redefining what power means. And as I say, this was the launch in January, back in the days where we could actually be close to one another. Fabulous launch event, packed with incredible women, all powering up. And that's a picture of my two girls who really have been part of the inspiration behind the book. They both are studying more the sciences really than the arts, and potentially will have a future in tech. And so I'm really inspired and motivated to make sure that their future is a place where there is true equality. You know, I'm completely with Accenture when it comes to, we need equality at every single level throughout organizations. And so the Power Up movement is looking at what power is and how we can all access it, and turning it on its head, creating a bit more of a broader view of what power is. But before I go into the detail of the Power Up model, what I thought would be really interesting would be to have a look at typical power blockers, because based on the research that I conducted, there are external blockers when it comes to women fulfilling their potential in the workplace. There are specific things that stop women from making their way up the career ladder. Things like not necessarily being recruited for the role that they want to, or perhaps not putting themselves forward for opportunities that will make them famous, as Heather was saying, or opportunities that will enable them to shine. You know, that there are structures that prevent women from really experiencing equality right from the very start. But there are also internal blockers, which I've got listed on this slide here. Based on my research, there are 5 key areas that are in our own heads when it comes to stopping ourselves from fulfilling our potential. So we've got not being able to have your voice heard. And I wonder how many of these that you can relate to. As I go through them, what I want you to think about is, which of these do you relate to the most? Okay, and in the chat, I want you to put a number, just one number next to your name, and we'll see which of these is most prevalent in the group that we've got here. So there's the first one, which is not having your voice heard in a meeting. There's the second one, which is the classic imposter syndrome, which is a term that's overused in my opinion. But, you know, that feeling that you feel like someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and tell you that you don't belong or that you shouldn't be here, the imposter syndrome. That third one around needing to be liked. And we tend to, as women, prioritize likability over respect. You know, we want everyone to like us. We want everything to be okay. And so that can sometimes stop us from really speaking our truth and communicating what we want and what we need. Perfectionism, classic one that can get in the way of our speaking up and putting ourselves forward. You know, there's a huge amount of research around the fact that women want to wait until they tick all the boxes of a job description before they put themselves forward for a role, whereas men will be more likely to just go for it. And then that wanting to please, that please people tendency, which again has been conditioned in many women from birth. Okay, so what I want you to do is put a number next to your name. I'm just going to have a little look at the chat. Actually, Heather, can you see the chat? Because I don't think I can see it from my view. So which number is coming out most out of all of those?
We have quite
know that we've got number 2 is the most at the moment.
Is it number 2, that the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, we've got a few 4s, a couple of 5s, the odd 3. Oh, we've got more coming in now.
Got more coming in?
2s,
Okay.
I think. 2s and 4s.
2s and 4s. That's interesting, because I delivered a this keynote to a global conference of executive assistants last week, and it was number 4 that was the most prevalent in that group, 200 global EAs. So it's interesting to see that that perfectionism thing it's a real killer. And speaking as a recovering perfectionist myself, we have to get over ourselves. You know, we have to stop feeling like we need to have everything in place before we can speak and act. Okay. All right, we might come back to that one later. So let me take you through the PowerUp model. And as I said, what I wanted to do was turn on its head the traditional perception of power, which is you either got it or you haven't got it. And turn on its head the perception that power is about force, power is about powering over, where you've got, you know, someone who's above and someone who's underneath, and move to much more around equality and how we can all unleash our own power and potential. And so this model is based around a 6-point star. I'm going to take you through the detail of each of these different points. And what you might want to do is take a picture of this model here and think about, against each of the different power sources, where are you stronger, where are you weaker? And therefore, what do you need to do to power up, to maximize on your strengths, but also build on those where you feel. So the 6-point star has got 3 elements which are internal. So those are intuition, knowledge, and resilience. And then there are 3 external power sources, and these are around how do you take your inner power and take it to the outside world. And so those are magnetism, relationships, and assertiveness. Okay, let's start with intuition. We've all heard of female intuition, haven't we? And sometimes people think, well, intuition, it's a bit woo-woo, isn't it? Kind of fluffy, airy. What does it actually mean? However, if you think of some of the most successful leaders we have globally, people like Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, they all use their intuition more than any other sense, more even than rational thought, to make decisions. So intuition is the thing that will encourage you to speak when you're in a meeting and perhaps you're feeling held back by perfectionism or the imposter syndrome. That intuition is that inner voice which will tell you what to say and how to act. So trust on it and find ways to build on that and listen to it and give it the space it deserves. So we've got intuition first. The second power source is the power of knowledge. And we've all heard of that phrase, haven't we? Knowledge is power. And for a good reason. Knowledge is really, it's the evidence that people use to rate you. And so it's thinking, how can you continue to build and develop your knowledge and use it to get yourself out there, increase your visibility, but also it gives you confidence. When you know what value you bring, you're going to be more likely to access that power. And so I break it down, knowledge, into a number of different buckets. So think about what qualifications or CPD points or training or courses you can go on that will deepen and broaden your knowledge. Think about the experience that you've got and how you articulate it. So if someone asks you, what do you do? Maybe a networking event and it's an opportunity, think about how you can package up that experience in a way appropriate to the person that you're talking to. And by the way, everything that I'm saying here is applicable to you, but also this is all stuff that you can pass on to your team, to your colleagues, to your sisters, to your daughters, to your mothers, to everyone. In fact, you know, everyone, doesn't have to be just women. Cultural knowledge is also incredibly powerful as well. So this is around how do we do things around here? What's the culture of the organization that you're in? And how do you position yourself within that culture? So understanding how things work within your organization. There's the environment. There's been huge changes environmentally across all sectors. So thinking about how your knowledge and your expertise fits and will fit in the new normal is going to be incredibly valuable. Think about the power of your network. Think about spending this time that we have now deepening and broadening your network, because it's hugely powerful. And think about developing your own self-knowledge as well. So that's the second power source, is the power of knowledge. The third one is the power of resilience. And this one, now more than ever, is absolutely what we need. We need to be able to access that power of resilience. And that's our ability to cope and actually thrive even through challenging circumstances. And so I've been talking a lot in recent weeks around how do you build and develop your resilience. And one tool that I've developed that people have found incredibly valuable is what I've called the PowerPause. Not the PowerPose, because that's got its own place, but the PowerPause. And this is particularly valuable when we're feeling under threat or under pressure, if we're feeling stressed, or if someone says something to us and we feel like we want to defend ourselves, we might immediately go into fight or flight, which will compromise our power. Instead, use the PowerPause, which has got 5 very simple steps. Firstly, recognize that you've been triggered. So recognize that someone said something or done something, or you're in a situation where you feel like your power has been compromised. Recognize that first. Secondly, this is so valuable. Take a moment to breathe. Purely by allowing oxygen into your lungs and breathing it out, that will calm you down and give you more power to act. Thirdly, think about how you're feeling. So if you're feeling stressed or if you're feeling exposed, talking about the imposter syndrome, if you're feeling it out of your depth, talking about perfectionism, if you're feeling tense and stressed, label that and think about, actually, is that the right emotion that you want to be feeling? In doing this, that gives you the power to be able to step out of your situation so that you can then choose actually which emotion you want to have. How do you really want to be feeling? All of this then gives you the power to choose how you're going to act. And so the PowerPause is an incredibly valuable tool to use as part of the power source, which is resilience. So those are the 3 internal power sources, and I'm moving through them quite quickly, and there will be time for me to answer any questions at the end. So please, you know, if you've got any questions, log them in the back of your mind and be ready to ask them at the end of mine and Helen's presentation. So the next power source, this is an external power source, is magnetism. And I use this image of a Chanel perfume bottle, actually, because it's about how do you spritz yourself with something that attracts people to you. So magnetism is about the power to attract. And when it comes to being visible, standing out from the crowd, really fulfilling your potential and making your way up the career ladder, people need to know who you are. And so magnetism is about how do you attract people to you, but how do you also emanate a powerful and attractive aura and brand that is relevant to the environment that you're in. So this is about how you show up, this is about your body language, this is about your voice, this is about how you, all of these things will attract people to you if you do them mindfully. The next power source is the power of relationships, and I think now is a great time to spend time nurturing those relationships. Some of us, perhaps some of us may have been furloughed, some of us may have more time than normal. So this is a great opportunity for you to nurture and strengthen the relationships that you have. but it's about doing it strategically. It's about identifying those people who you can build a relationship with, who will reciprocate when you help them out. So it's about finding ways in which you can create a mutually beneficial relationship with people and actively helping one another out. So this is about how can you deepen your relationships through this situation. Finally, we've got the power source of assertiveness. And this one is the most directly involved with finding and using your voice. And so assertiveness is about how will you get that voice out there. And as we identified before, you know, there are a number of different blockers that stop us from being assertive, that stop us from finding our voice. Let me just check in with you again, Heather, to just see which was the most powerful power blocker that we identified earlier on in that. What was the biggest number, Heather?
The biggest number was 2, then 4, and then 3 and 5 came last.
Okay, so thank you, Jen. I was like, Heather, she's talking without moving her mouth. That's amazing.
Sorry, my video is not working today. Apologies.
My lovely assistant.
Thank you, Jennifer. Right, so number 2 was the imposter syndrome. Yeah, we need to get over ourselves. We need to move beyond the imposter syndrome. I think it's become quite a dangerous label. The imposter syndrome, in fact, if you're feeling a touch of the imposters, then actually that's an indication that you have put yourself out of your comfort zone and that you're pushing and stretching yourself to progress and develop. And so actually it's a brilliant sign that you are developing and progressing, because the more you spend time outside of your comfort zone, the more you get better at what you do in that place that's outside of your comfort zone, the more accomplished you become, and the more that becomes part of your power. And so it's about just making friends with that imposter syndrome, really, and allowing it to tell you that you're actually doing brilliantly and you are progressing and developing. Assertiveness, in fact, it's about overcoming those feelings like perfectionism and imposter syndrome and needing to be liked and all of those things, finding our voice. Assertiveness is this place in between on this continuum, which I've got on this slide, which is knowing how do you stay in the middle. So when you're under threat, we've got the PowerPause, which I was telling you about before, but it's also knowing where you tend to go when you're feeling under pressure, or what is it that stops you from using your voice. Some people will go really passive, some people will quieten down and stop talking, or maybe their voice will go more quiet, or maybe they'll want to fold themselves in, their body language will become small, and so people will shut down in that space. Or they might go the other end of the extreme where they become aggressive, and you know, they start shouting, and you know, they start speaking more loudly, and they start slamming around, and neither end of this spectrum is appropriate, because it shows that actually we've lost control, and in that place we give away our power. And so we do have to be careful though, because some people will misinterpret that assertive communication style, which is in the middle, for bossiness, itchiness, you know, all of those things that are negative labels. It may be actually that we're purely communicating assertively. So how do you communicate assertively? Well, it's about, firstly, it's about thinking in your head, having the mindset of assertiveness. So thinking that you have just as much right to have your voice heard as the other person. And so often what compromises our assertiveness is we feel like there's a hierarchy, and we have dropped down, and we think that the other person in some way is above us. So in that way, they've got the power and we don't. So we have to address the balance and think quality. We have to also think about so think about what you want and prepare in advance what it is that you want to achieve, but also put yourself in the shoes of the other person and think about what they want and what they need. From that place, you will be able to communicate assertively. Body language, yeah, the PowerPause, the PowerPose, should I say, is a brilliant way of preparing, and you'll all have heard of the PowerPose. But there are other things that you can do to communicate from a strong place. So if you want to be heard, doing things like standing up like I am now, having a symmetrical posture, putting your shoulders back, standing tall, looking directly at the person that you're talking to. All of these things say a lot about your position and your place in the world, and you can choose to do that. And then finally, think about your voice. Minimize detractors and fillers and maybe I should and could I just and perhaps possibly. Lose those things that compromise our power and instead get super clear on what you want. Speak in really short sentences. Make sure that you have pauses so that your points land, and be very clear on the outcome that you want to achieve. All of these things will mean that you're more able to communicate assertively. So, in a nutshell, to summarize the 6 power sources, we have intuition, which is really about connecting with your inner wisdom and listening to your intuitive voice, because 9 times out of 10, it will know what you need to do. Number 2, it's about knowledge. Really mobilize your strengths, but also find a way of articulating the expertise that you have so that people value it. Number 3, yes, be strong, even through adversity. Number 4, magnetism. Learn how to attract people to you. Think about what you can do with how you show up, your energy, your style, your body language, voice, to attract attention. Number 5, relationships. Use sisterhood. Use the relationship. Build the relationships that you have. And number 6, your voice. Use the techniques that I've shared with you and make sure you get what you deserve. That's a very quick whistle-stop the power sources and the PowerUp model. I'm going to hand back to Heather.
Thanks, Antoinette. That was awesome. Really good run through and some really good nuggets. I think it's definitely wants you to buy your book and kind of read more about it. Some really good thoughts in there and perspectives around power of women. So I think it resonated quite a few bits. We had quite a few nice comments in the chat there, and we've got a question, so we'll come back to the question. Thanks, Nitson. So I'll hand over to Helen now to shine a light on another perspective. Are you okay to share, Helen?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yep, no worries. I'll mute and I'll let you share. Thank you.
Okay, super. Thank you. So I just want to say I'm delighted and grateful for Supermoms for giving me this platform. What I'm going to try and do today is distill 30 plus years of experience to help women progress their careers. I think I've already failed at the first hurdle. I'm not standing up. I'm sitting in my kitchen, true COVID style. My children may wander in or out, and I apologize for that, but we are still in lockdown, I kind of think. Anyway, so let me share my screen and I will kick off. And I did love the hashtag PowerPause, and I thought that was awesome. Brilliant, brilliant. So let me go here. Just bear with me. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
I'm hoping you can. Great. Okay. Well, again, just thank you for giving me this platform to share on today. Yeah. Really excited to be here. So I'm going to come at this in, I guess, 3 chunks. The first chunk is I want to talk about role models and the importance of role models. The second is about values creating value, and then what the Salesforce approach is. I've spent over 30 years in IBM in sales leadership positions, various sales leadership positions, until I was enticed away a couple of years ago by Salesforce. So I'm going to give you the Salesforce approach. So I think, but before I start with that, I want to talk about, I think the thing that underpins successful women and women getting the most out of life, and that is confidence. And the best thing we can give our girls and girls going through school is confidence. It's important women feel that they can take control and they can own their futures and they can really go for it. So I don't know if anyone recognizes this, this video. In 2014, the feminine hygiene brand Always launched a Like a Girl advertising campaign. And it asked the question, when did the phrase like a girl become an insult? Why can't like a girl mean to win the race? And I just want to play this video. It's just a minute long, so bear with me.
Hi, Erin. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. My hair. Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl.
Aw.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
So research, and I mean, I don't know what you think about this video, and there's a longer one which runs for 3 minutes, but I thought it was absolutely awe-inspiring when it came out. And I know it won loads of awards. I'm not sure how many more hygiene feminine products it sold, but it certainly did well from an advertisement point of view. And this was built on the fact that research shows that at puberty, 49% of girls feel paralyzed by the fear of failure. And you could see what a 10-year-old thought versus what a 17-year-old thought. This leads to girls avoiding trying new things because they're too afraid to fail. And the truth is, failing is a good thing, right? Every now and again, it's what really helps us learn. It's what really helps us grow and ultimately build confidence and resilience. And this is why it's incredibly important for women to have role models that they can relate to and inspire after. And I love this quote, "You cannot be what you can't see." And this is a quote attributed to the American civil rights activist Marian Wright Edelman. And she's absolutely right. You know, we need girls and women, all of us need to see adult women excel and show what can be achieved. And this is not just the Oprah Winfreys and the Michelle Obamas who exist on the global stage, but at all levels. Young girls need individuals to show them that the values and achievements of someone who is their authentic self, because we want to be our authentic self, right, are more valid and admirable than culturally imposed norms. They want to be encouraged. We want them to be encouraged that they go for it and they're not too careful. And I just want to pick up a little anecdote from very early in my career. And this actually builds on what Antoinette was saying and the difference between aggression and assertiveness. I thought I'd been terribly brave because I'd booked a meeting with my second line boss. So it was like a skip level review because I wanted to meet him. I wanted him to know me. I wanted him to understand what was important to me, what I was doing. I wanted to know what was important to him. And we had this meeting. And at this meeting, he said to me, basically, you know, you come across as, you know, you're too aggressive. And actually, it was a beautiful moment because I was so cross at that time. And I had to make a really quick decision. I had to decide, do I suck it up and just listen, or shall I be a little bit brave and stand my ground? So I decided at that moment to stand my ground. And I told him, and this was a real guttural reaction, if it was a man, if that was a man sitting there instead of me, I doubted it would have been his observation. Really meaning that basically I was thinking I'm an assertive woman, and how dare you accuse me of being aggressive? Reflecting on that decision, I think it turned out to be the lesser risk option, it made me feel good that I'd pushed back, which was really important. I think it also made him think, maybe tap into his unconscious bias, and I think it made him start to respect me. It's interesting to note that when I left IBM, I was in a more senior position than he'd reached, right? And by just doing that little thing, it was a real confidence boost. It really, really helped, yeah? So diversity is proven to improve the output of organizations. Why is it then that the most strategic departments in many businesses, such as sales, such as IT, such as management, they lack diversity? There's a huge opportunity here for businesses to reap the rewards for a more diverse set of influences and backgrounds across their employees. And this is proven, right? A McKinsey study, and I know we've talked about Accenture studies, but McKinsey study found that of the 366 public companies analysed, those in the top 25% for gender or racial or ethnic diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above their national industry medians. Similarly, gender diverse companies are 15% more likely to have financial performance above the national industry median. So it's not only the right thing to do on equality, it's also the smart thing to do. So let me talk a little bit about what Salesforce does, and actually what partly attracted me to Salesforce. So Salesforce is committed to, and this is partly what sets it apart, is committed to a core set of values. And there are 4. Trust, customer success, innovation, and equality. And many of you might be familiar with these. These guide us. These guide how we operate every day and are ingrained in our culture. So this is right at the top to right at the street. So companies need to lead with values and invest in culture. It's important that our employees care and you can trust them so you can feel safe to turn up as you are. It's really important to create a psychologically safe environment for women. And in fact, it's something we measure in our employee surveys, which leads to better decision making. So we believe that creating a workplace that reflects the communities you serve as a business improves customer, partner, and employee relationships, as well as increasing revenue. So this is how a business can really achieve authenticity and leadership, essential for giving legitimacy to the organization's values and cultures. And I think it was Heather that touched on the UK gender pay gap report. So, diversity and inclusion starts with transparency, right? Companies should be open in measuring and sharing diversity statistics. Without data, you can't have a true view of where women are in the business, and therefore, how can you really support them? So Salesforce publishes its UK gender pay gap report based on the criteria established by the government. And our numbers are always available at salesforce.com. So, we really try and put our money where our mouth is and walk the talk in terms of values. And it is at all levels. So just touch back to a bit of personal experience. So just because we need more women at all levels in the corporate world, it doesn't mean we get a free ticket, right? Women need to have a stoic mindset, be resilient, ambitious in business, rumble with vulnerability, and be a little bit brave. And hopefully I've just given you a tiny example of that. And underpinning these characteristics it's about having confidence and proudly wearing the scars that you've collected along your journey, which all contribute to you having a true belief of yourself and of self. And just a little example of where I've rumbled with vulnerability. Some years ago, when my husband was offered his dream job on the west coast of the US, I was working for IBM. IBM had been able to arrange a senior position for me out on the west coast too. That this was a good advantage of me working for a global company. During the October half term, we spent a busy week in San Francisco finding somewhere to live, looking at schools for our 2 children, getting ready for our January move. I had been planned out of the IBM UK and Ireland structure for the following year because I was going to work on the West Coast, and everything was beautifully going to plan. It was very exciting. Then in December, the job my husband had been offered in his corporate life, his dream job, got changed. The company didn't see the big deal. His financial package would be the same. It was just, it was just a corporate reorganization. What's the big deal? However, this was a big deal to my husband, who now wasn't really interested in the job and didn't want to cause this tremendous family upheaval for a lesser job in his eyes. So we discussed and agreed we wouldn't go. However, I was out of a job in the UK. I had a job on the West Coast. What was I going to do? So I had to pluck up some courage. I remember going to see my boss on the Monday morning, and I explained to him the situation and asked if he would plan me back into his organization. To my surprise, his reaction was incredible. He just laughed. And the reason he laughed was he was saying because of his experience. He said it was a good job we'd found out about the job change now and not when we'd arrived in the US. And he was an Australian guy. He had had a number of job moves around the world, and it turned out he turned out some almost job moves too. So he understood the situation. Interestingly, I'd been planned out of my existing role. So I had to be planned into a different role, and I was given a high stakes job, which although was really tough, and I did go through a very tough 18 months following this, it positioned me for my next promotion. So that was quite an interesting thing to happen, and I really had to rumble with vulnerability. And I was, I was out of control, right? I had to really seek help to get back into the organization. In terms of confidence and being brave, and I think the other thing I would say is don't pass up opportunities that are presented to you. So just a little Salesforce example I have for you. I was asked to present at our regional kickoff at the start of this year. So it was a 30-minute presentation, and it was in front of 2,500 people at the Excel Center. And there would be additional people tuning in remotely. And I was actually asked to present on an area of the business that I don't run. So I could have said, well, it's not really my area. I think Janice over there should do it, or John should do it. But of course I didn't. I took a deep breath and realized it was a great opportunity. I was terrified. I swallowed hard. I researched this area of the business and then rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. And although terrified, I just got such a buzz out of doing it. And it was such a good thing. So, even after 30 years, some things are still scary, right? And I think it's important to put yourself in those positions when things are still scary. So before I play this video, so what is the Salesforce approach and initiatives? How are we driving equality? And remember, equality is one of our 4 key tenets, right? We absolutely truly believe that equality and diversity make us a better company. And we respect and value employees from every background, and we thrive as a result. Let me talk about equal pay, first of all. So equal pay, we spent almost $10 million over the past 3 years to ensure that men and women at Salesforce are paid equally for equal jobs. So that's really important. We've put our money where our mouth is. Equal opportunity. We're committed to creating a diverse workplace that reflects the communities we serve, and in an inclusive culture where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. And I just want to show you this video, which I think really represents it beautifully. And I actually get quite emotional when I play this, so see what you think. Oh, no, that didn't work, did it? Yeah, let me try again.
At a very young age, we learn to make a distinction between you and me. Simple, right? But what if somehow?
I could see the world from your perspective.
And you could see it from mine. Think for a second. I know all your hopes and dreams.
E tudo que te incomoda.
और आपको भी वो पता चले मेरे बारे में.
You know what it's like to have a daughter who struggles with, is she black enough? Is she white enough?
You would know what it's like to not have enough confidence to express your ideas.
You'd know what it would be like for people to take your culture and turn it into a theme party.
You would know that every time that you say you have a husband, people pause.
To be gender non-conforming.
To be comfortable being uncomfortable a lot of times.
You know what it's like to lose your little brother to HIV.
You'd know that there is struggle and pain, but also a lot of hope.
And suddenly
we would see
that although our lives are very different, they are also very much the same.
And that bigger than you and me
is us. Now,
and as us, we know this.
You don't have to look like us,
worship like us,
live like us,
or love like us,
to stand with us. Of course, you'll always be you, and I'll always be me.
But there's nothing stopping us.
There's nothing stopping us.
There's nothing stopping us.
There's nothing stopping us from becoming us.
Mote.
Nitsitebi, kami, nosotros,
woman,
nos.
We're stronger as us. We're stronger as allies.
So guys, perhaps that touched you as in the same way that it touches me every time I watch that video. But I think it's very nice. I think it really reflects what we're trying to do in Salesforce. There are two other things I just wanted to talk about in terms of our initiatives. The first is we have equality groups. So our employees are empowered to run equality groups. So there are 12 in existence today. So they bring together different communities. So we have the Women's Network, we have something called Bold Force, which stands for Black Organization for Leadership and Development. We have Vet Force, which is set up to bring military veterans, their families and supporters of the military together. We have Latino Force, and people are encouraged to set up these communities, which is just an awesome thing, to support those communities. The other thing I want to mention is we have something called Future Force, and this is Salesforce's university recruiting and in-house internship program. And it cultivates the next generation of talent through work experience. And these interns are given real projects that impact how the business runs, setting them up for success in their future careers. Really interesting statistic. Last year, the UK intake in Future Force was 64% female, which is an exceptionally high percentage, particularly in the IT industry. And I just wonder if, these women and girls are attracted to Salesforce because of our values, because of our culture, because of our policy of doing good while doing well. So on that note, I just wanted to summarize. And again, I wanted to say thank you for listening. Key points. It is important that women do things, try things, experiment with things in their lives to drive up their confidence, to drive up their independence and their can-do attitude. More and more companies such as Salesforce are doing more to attract women and other minorities to their place of work. Diversity of thought drives better decision-making and better outcomes. It makes business sense. However, women must also help themselves by taking risks, doing uncomfortable stuff every now and again, as I hope I've illustrated. I have by a couple of examples I talked through stretching themselves to building their self-belief. Finally, it is critical that successful women help other women achieve their dreams. There is no room in this world for women who pull the ladder up behind them. We all need to help each other to build a strong network, and I think Antoinette talked about that, as well as Heather, and make that network work for us. Thank you for listening.
Oh, thanks, Helen. That's perfect. And thank you for sharing your personal stories as well. That's fantastic. I think those videos, you're right, you know, they really do resonate with you, and I think the messages that we've all wanted to really convey today, which, you know, if I sum up really one of what we've talked about in essence, I think the importance of role models, and both, you know, Antoinette and Helen sharing your story, you know, to others. It kind of, you know, it's not easy. People sometimes I think look at leaders and put them on a pedestal, right? Oh, well, they've started their own business, or they're in a leadership role in a corporate. Oh, well, you know, it takes hard work to get there, and it's about sort of really pushing yourself out of the comfort zone, as you've mentioned. So I think, you know, the importance of role models is key, you know, and being able to equip people with the skills and confidence and mentor and coach people to kind of follow in those footsteps is really important. And I think we've all talked about, you know, you've got to push yourself out of the comfort zone to get there as well. You know, but people won't push themselves out of the comfort zone if they don't feel confident that they could achieve it. And I think that goes back full circle to why the role models are there, and really important to kind of inspire people to take that leap of faith. And it's certainly what I wanted to do with, you know, with Super Mums. It was very much around, you know, there's job opportunities, guys, here. You know, we need to tell other mums about it. We need to push out that message. We need to give role models and just tell that story so more and more people will listen. And I think, you know, that's something I'm passionate about. But, you know, if every woman taps into what they're passionate about and what they want to have a voice about and what they want to, you know, share their message about, then, you know, we can all echo things and help each other climb that ladder. So we've all got a contribution that we can make in some way to supporting each other. So I'd just like to go to questions on this. Jen, do you want to read out the questions for us that have come up? And if you've got anything, just put them in the chat window or Q&A.
Yep, I was having a little chat to myself then, sorry. So we've got a question from Nitzan saying, how do you handle a situation when someone else dominates the conversation without having the relevant knowledge? And when you try to have your voice heard, you're considered aggressive or condescending?
Do you want to go first, Antoinette?
Yeah, sure. Good question. And we'll always come across people who have who want to exert their dominant voice, whether they're women or men, you know, however they identify, you know, it depends. And so it's about knowing how to handle that. And there are a number of different strategies. Preparing in advance as much as you possibly can before you go in situations, so that you've got your ducks in a row, you know what your key messages are and how you're going to communicate them, will help keep you calm and rational and strong. What happens when we go fight or flight and anyone, you know, dominating the conversation, we've got a script going on in our head that's saying, you know, they don't have a right to speak, you know, they don't have the knowledge, etc. They're being really condescending. We've lost our power because we've gone into, you know, that trigger mode, which I was talking about in terms of fight or flight. So preparing in advance, get your ducks in a row, use the PowerPause that I was talking about before. If all of that fails though, and it continues to be a problem, I would recommend that, you know, if this is happening in a public environment, say it's happening in a meeting or you've got an audience present, you know, if it's happening on the sales floor or something, or in front of, you know, clients or customers, then I would take that individual to one side and have a private conversation with them, and again prepare in advance and give them specific examples about what they're doing or not doing, how they're coming across as aggressive and condescending, specific words that they're using and the body language they're using, so that they get it, so that they understand where you're coming from, and then be specific about what you want to have different. If you have an ongoing problem with this individual though, and it feels like it's really holding you back, I would recommend talking to somebody else, maybe someone within your organisation or someone within HR, because that sort of behaviour can be really detrimental and have a negative drip effect over time.
Fab.
Thanks, Antoinette. Helen, did you want to add to that?
Well, God, I just might be tempted to try and be louder, or maybe almost go the other way, which is if I'm on a a hangout or whatever as we are now, you almost like put my hand up and say, do you mind if I ask a question? You know, go completely the other way to sort of show the behavior up, if you like. Yeah, but I think there are quite a few different ways, and I think it depends on what it looks like, and to Antoinette's point, how long it's been going on, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other aspect to that is, I suppose, if you're presenting or it's a conversation around something where you want to get your point across, is, you know, prepare that presentation or proposal deck so you've got it in black and white as well, what you're trying to put across, because then it's in your writing. And it, you know, it goes back to my early years of working in a company where I came up with a whole CPD program for an organization, and it was a verbal conversation that then my manager at the time went off and just led with, and then he got a promotion off the back of it, and I didn't get any acknowledgement. And what I should have done is written that all down and put it on a paper, and actually, you know, perhaps done what Helen did, go one step above, you know, and make sure that actually my bases were covered, you know, in a way that it was my proposal, and at the time that, you know, it might have been more recognized. And I think it's, you know, just cover your back, really. You know, if you don't think you're going to get airtime, look at different ways of communicating, you know, and putting your knowledge forward in a different way. Sorry, Antoinette, did you want to say something else then?
Yeah, I think just to build on what you both said, of course it's always going to be context specific, but there are little jingles that you can put in there. So like, oh, can I ask a question? Just change the energy altogether. So if someone says something condescending, what you could do is you could repeat it back and then look and see how they respond, because often they don't really appreciate how they're being. So that can help as well.
Well, thanks, Antoinette. On mute then. Jen, do you want to go through the next question?
Yeah, so our next question is from Samira saying, is the Women Returners program in Salesforce in the UK?
Helen, do you want to take
that? Yes, it is. Yes. So we do all sorts of things for women, and including you know, maternity return. We give paternity leave as well. Yeah, so we have all sorts of programs actually to help women return to work. Yeah, after children, or after a break, right? But yes, after children. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Helen. We've actually been talking about getting supermums feeding into the Women's Returner programme in the UK as well. So that's exciting. So hopefully that will come about later this year. Helen, just a question for you around role models and sort of career promotion. Is there anything specifically at Salesforce that kind of, you know, inspire the women to work up the workforce? Is it more informal, or is there a bit more of a formal programme that supports that?
Is there, so I'm just trying to make sure I understand your question, Heather. Is there a formal program that supports female promotions?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think what we do, I mean, we have a process of promoting people, a promotions process. We hold board panels, and we go through quite a rigorous process. It's not biased towards women, but what we do is we monitor how many women, what percentage of women we have at all levels. Yeah, because we want to improve it. And if you can imagine, we've got 64% of our graduates are women coming in. We want to see them come up through the ranks and become senior, right? So we're measuring at all levels. And do we have a female candidate for each significant role that we have, right? And we try and make sure we do. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Jen, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, so I have a question from Debbie, which is, how do you get over fear of failure? You want to step out and gain more knowledge, but you feel like you'll fail and let people down?
So it's one Heather?
Yes,
All
go
right.
for it.
I think well, just getting a bit of echo there. So how do you get over fear of failure? Do it anyway. You know that phrase, the fear and do it anyway. I think that throughout my entire career, each step that I took that took me to the next level was bound up with fear and worry about what people would think, letting people down. You know, it happens every single time. And I don't know, there's something that is in me, which particularly if someone says, oh, you can't do that, or it's a bit scary, or do you think it's going to work? You know, when someone says that, if someone says to me, I can't do something, there's something that's in me that thinks, right, I'm just going to do it then. You know, and it's still scary, but I do it, and 9 times out of 10, you know, it's helped power me forward. You know, there have been things that have failed, but I don't really dwell on those or remember those things because I just keep moving on. I think one of the key things though is to have someone who's got your back. So whether that's a manager, whether that's a colleague, whether that's a coach or a mentor, or maybe someone virtual who you look up to and you think, wow, you know, they're a few steps ahead of me and they're doing it. Surround yourself with people who are feeling that fear and doing it anyway, because it's part of development. You know, it's really bound up with imposter syndrome, and we can't let that stop us from progressing. And you know, all of you wouldn't be here unless you'd felt the fear and done it anyway.
Absolutely, Antoinette, thank you. I think we wouldn't have progressed through school or got our first job without this feeling throughout. So it's being comfortable. You know, it's exactly what that guy said in that video at the end, isn't it? It's being uncomfortable with being uncomfortable and kind of just going through it. You know, whether it's going into a new job role in a new company or progressing into a new job role within an existing company or going out on your own, you're always going to face that fear. And for me personally, I've always had coaches, you know, alongside me. I've had different coaches that suit my different sort of skills, needs at the time, that have, you know, allowed me to continue focusing on the positive. Or what, you know, okay, that's over there, let's acknowledge, what are you going to do that's actually going to keep you focused on succeeding? You know, what do you need to put in place? Because you know, even with COVID, you kind of sat there, you know, you can sit there for a day and have that day, acknowledge it. You're scared, you know, you have that rabbit in the headlights, you know, acknowledge it, feel it, embrace it, and then go, okay, I've had that moment now. I'm just gonna keep focusing on what I need to do to succeed, you know. So don't brush it aside. It's part of an emotional balance, but I think it's about acknowledging that and putting in place things to move on. Helen, did you have anything to add to that one?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to come off mute and find an outlet so my battery doesn't go. But yeah, I mean, I think it's to think about what's the worst thing that can happen if you do fail, and also, will you really kick yourself if you don't do whatever it is you're thinking about doing or not doing? Will you really kick yourself? I think it's those two things really. And then just get on with it. Just do it.
Thanks, Helen. That's awesome.
Thanks, Helen. That's awesome.
Really good perspective.
I think that what's the best thing that will happen as well. So really visualize. You know, I was terrified when I decided to write my book, and it's like, how fit doing that in over and above, you know, family, everything. You know, how's it going to affect my relationships, etc. And it was visualized, actually getting that, taking that book out of the box and looking through it and handing it over to people and inscribing it with people's names. You know, it's like think about the best thing that could happen as a result of just doing it as well can be really powerful, because each of us is motivated with different things. Some of us it's about what we want, and some of us it's about what we don't want. So to create a strategy that's best for you.
Absolutely. Great, thank you. Right, any other questions come through? So Kaylee, thanks Kaylee for your post about the Women's Network at Salesforce. So absolutely, we talked the last webinar, we talked about the Women's Network, and I think, Jen, is that on YouTube, on our Supermum's YouTube channel, the recording from that?
Yes, it is, and it's on a blog post on our website as well.
So if you want to go check that out, it was fascinating to sort of learn more about how the Women's Network runs and what that does to drive gender diversity. And we also went through kind of all the 40+ topics around how you can support women in the workplace as well, like you know, what the strategy could be for supporting women more generally, and I found that was a really good place. So when you start to think, well, what can we do to support women in the workplace? There's loads of things you could do, but what if you start listening to people and them understanding, you know, women need to know what potential areas you could help them with, or you should be thinking about. So going through with the women in your workplace and saying, look, you know, we want to help you, we could address all of these areas for you, but rank the ones that are most important to you. Like, let's start thinking about it, and then you can start to profile their voice in the ways that most make sense to you. So, and I suppose following on now from those conversations, I think the questions I'll pose back to you now to think about going forward is, we don't want you to leave this webinar with overwhelm of all the stuff you can do. It's kind of going, you know, what is important to our staff and our team, and what should we be focusing on? And then once you know that, focus on thinking about, well, what skills do we need to give them? You know, what training and support should we give them to start amplifying their voices? How do we give these women confidence in sharing, you know, what they want to share, you know, their voice, their expertise, their role, and give them that platform through different outlets, whether that's internally or externally. You know, start to amplify their voices, because we want to create more and more role models to showcase externally as well as internally, to kind of keep this momentum going ultimately. And then talk about the impact. I mean, what I'd love off the back of these webinars, and it's great to see so many people sign up to this one who came to the last one, is if we can continue this sharing of best practice and this continuing of knowledge, I'd love to come back to the viewers, and, you know, in a year's time, to say, okay, well, what have you put in place? You know, what change have you managed to create within your organizations to support women since we started these webinars? What have you taken away? Because I want to run these webinars and feel that we're making an impact, first off, but two, I want to know that we're changing behaviours and making a difference. And by empowering you with the knowledge that you've perhaps taken away from today, you know, we can then amplify more women. And I realise I can't just support women alone in the Salesforce sector. You know, together we can be much stronger, as I say, and amplify that message and share best practice, and together we can make a difference. So I'd just love to, you know, to take away those questions, take away this content. Jen will summarize everything in a blog, so we disseminate it for you, and then you've got that to come back to. And if we can help you in any way, we do have some associates on our team who can come in and work with you more specifically on helping create a strategy for women in the workplace. But we can also help you hire. So if you're looking to hire more women and want more female CVs, we've got the Supermum's recruitment team to do that. And if you want to champion that you are supporting women and profiling, then we are looking for sponsors for some of these events going forward. Our vision was to have leadership lunches and to get everybody together, but obviously we're here on webinars at the moment again. For the near future, depending on when they open things up, but I'd love to get everybody in a room together and talking about these topics when we can get back in sort of hitting back into London. So on the 7th of July, looks like this is going to be a webinar still from what they were saying the other day. So we're going to be talking about flexibility in the workplace on the 7th of July. And I think flexibility is a really interesting one, because there's lots of different perspectives right now around, you know, well, will work go back to normal? You know, how soon will it go back to normal? You know, what does flexibility look like, and how do we keep everybody engaged and feeling inclusive during this period of flexibility? And doesn't there need to be change in policies, etc., to the way we're going to work? Is there going to be a new norm? So I think there's lots of conversations around flexibility in the workplace right now, and what does that look like? But I'm also interested to hear from people thinking about webinars or events, depending on the format, for sort of September onwards. What are the other topics you're interested in right now? If you could just put in the chat any other topics that you'd like to see us cover, that would be fantastic. And then we can sort of take those away and start to formulate them for the autumn. So please do put any suggestions forward, or drop us an email if you want to as well. If you're keen to speak and share your own experience within your own organisation, we'd love to hear from you as well. So thank you very much for listening today. It's been amazing to have Helen and Antoinette share their experiences. Thank you so much for your time, because I know you're both super busy, but it's been fascinating, and I think together we brought a really rounded perspective, actually, from lots of different angles, talking about why it's so important to give women a voice in the workplace. So I really hope that it's giving everybody and all the listeners some insight and experience and a bit of an action plan to sort of take away. Antoinette and Helen, would you like to say any last words to the audience? Antoinette, I'll hand over to you first.
Thank you. That's great, Heather. And yeah, just if you want to get in touch with me, and if you've got any other questions about how you power up your career, then please do. And I will just share my contact details. I don't think I can do that, Heather, while you're sharing.
That's fine. We can put them on the blog and send them out to everybody as well.
Yeah, and just to say, I'm running a Gravitas Masterclass online on the 2nd of July, and it will go into more detail on all the different initiatives that I was talking about just now. And yeah, there's a special offer. It's one place is $295, two places, multiple bookings is $245. And for today's audience only, if you want to attend, you get a free coaching session, which is worth £300 for every place booked. And so if you want to find out more about how to power up your career potential and go into more detail, specifically how to communicate with confidence and enhance your impact and influence online and offline, then please just do get in touch. I'd be delighted to help.
Thank you, Antoinette. That's brilliant. Well, if you send us the info, we can put that in the email that we send out to all the attendees as well. That'd be awesome. I might be booking my spot.
It'd be great to see you there.
Helen, over to you. Do you want to say a few last words?
Yeah, so I just want to thank you again for giving me this opportunity to actually reflect on the past 30 years and what actually has helped me, and how can I therefore impart that information to help other women. Yeah, because I think that's really, really important. And I think it's been summed up. I think, you know, network, confidence, putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, you know, look at the culture around you and the climate around you. It sounds like you need to invest in Antoinette's book, actually. That looks very, very good. And belief in yourself, right? And that means continuing to push and feel uncomfortable, because then you'll feel more comfortable, and then you will have more belief in yourself. Feel free to link in with me, and thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Helen. That's fantastic. I think it's been a real boost today. I think it definitely feels like we've got a bit of power behind us, and we're all now invincible, and we can all take action on the things that was holding us back. So yeah, go and demonstrate some of the things we've learned today. So thank you so much again for joining. Thanks for hanging on. People have lasted to the hour and a half. I know that's hard at the moment, given it's a bit of webinar fatigue. So thank you very much. I'll let you all go and go and get your drink that you need. Thanks again, Helen and Antoinette. Thanks, Jen, for helping, and have a lovely afternoon, everyone. Take care. Bye.